Hi, I'm Michael Ingui of Baxter Ingui Architects, also founder of the Passive House Accelerator. Welcome everyone to a really cool show where we're going to look at healthy materials, up-level your interiors, and passive house projects. Our presenters are Michelle Jacobson, Maria Lomanto, and we have a guest host, which is Phoebe Beechner. So Phoebe is an interior designer for Hart Howerton in New York. Focusing mainly on hotel and restaurant design for spa and wellness and private high-end residential projects. She received her MPS in Sustainability Interior Environments from NCIDQ and BFA in Interior Design from SCAD. Very cool school. She is currently the ASID New York Metro Chapter's Professional Development Director and has served on the ASID Advocate by Design Council. So thank you for coming on and welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. As he mentioned, I'm currently the Professional Development Director for the American Society of Interior Designers, New York Metro Chapter, and I'm so excited to introduce our expert speakers with us today, who are two incredible designers, also ASID New York Metro members, and as well, very dear friends of mine. Before I do, I'd like to inform everyone here a little bit more about ASID. Again, that stands for the American Society of Interior Designers, in which we believe that design transforms lives, serving the full range of the interior design profession and practice through the Society's programs, networks, and advocacy. Our local chapter has about 1,400 current members, in which we offer them career stage programming that focuses on the impact of design, business of design, leadership development, and health and wellness. So now I'd like to say a few words about our speakers, who are both WELL APs, Living Future Ambassadors, Certified Healthy Material Advocates. Everyone please meet Michelle Jacobson and Maria Lomanto. Michelle and Maria both serve on the ASID National AP ID Council Subcommittee on Sustainability and Wellness. Maria is the chair of that subcommittee. Maria is also the president-elect of the New York Metro chapter of ASID. And Michelle serves on the International Code Council's Code Interpretation Committee and Sustainability Membership Council. As I mentioned, they're both members of our local chapter on the Health, Wellness, and Sustainability Committee, along with myself. Thank you again for all joining us today. And now I'll let Maria and Michelle take it away.
Great. Thank you, Phoebe. I want to thank the Passive House Accelerator for having us here today. We're very excited about this presentation. Michelle and I could literally talk for hours about healthy materials. We have enough that we could put on a full day, all day workshop. So what we're going to be presenting today is really the tip of the iceberg. We are sitting in fear of forgetting to tell you things. So please put questions in the chat because we can pick things up in the Q&A at the end. And so I'm going to share my screen and we will dive in. So healthy materials. This is about up-leveling your interiors and passive house projects. And this is our slide. Let's see, healthy materials and passive house. So we want to talk about what this has to do with passive house. How does it relate? And, you know, passive houses are already perceived of as very, very healthy. You have this beautiful airtight envelope, and it does an amazing job at keeping everything outside, all those things that you don't want inside. But when it comes to indoor air quality, Michelle and I always want to know what's inside that envelope. It's very important because even though you have the air exchange system with a passive house and it's allowing the fresh filtered air in, again, it's keeping whatever is outside out. We still question how healthy is it? So with that airtight envelope and all of the passive house benefits, and I love these Passive House Accelerator icons and graphics, you've got that cross for the health benefit of a passive house, and there's no dust. But we want to talk about the relationship between these two, because you're controlling the air in terms of humidity and temperature, and you're keeping the outside particulate matter out. But there's a lot that goes on inside of a space. So we are kind of throwing down the gauntlet here and saying, passive house community, up-level your interiors and include healthy materials. And everything we're about to say today, actually, it's not just for interiors. All of this can also apply to your wall assemblies and pretty much everything that you are doing. So there's a lot going on inside of the built environment that may not be filtered out. And there's a lot of human activity. So let's take a look at why healthy materials. Michelle?
So first, a quick shout out to the Parsons Healthy Material Lab for their generous lend of slides in this first series that we'll be talking about. Also, welcome to everyone that's here, and thank you, Passive House Accelerator, for inviting me as part of this program. So first discussion is a little bit about our indoor air quality. Indoor air may be 3 to 5 times more contaminated than outdoor air. And there are many indoor air pollutants. Those can include heavy metals, radon, carbon monoxide, biological contaminants that could come in from shoes or packages that are shipped to you, VOCs and SVOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, as well as semi-volatile organic compounds, and then particulate matter, which could be found in a number of finishes in and around the interior of a home. So everything within a space, on the interior space of a home, the materials start to break down and particles release. So VOCs and SVOCs get released from different materials around the home. Particulate dust in the breakdown from feet walking on different surfaces, from shoes coming in from the outdoors, bringing in any number of items that could be outside the home, and then as well as any unbound additives. So everything within the interior space of this beautiful passive house envelope, we have material breakdown and particle release that we need to be aware of. There are several pathways within the body. We can inhale, we can ingest, and by touching any surface, we can absorb any kind of toxins or materials that are unhealthy for us. So if we are what we eat, then we are where we live. There are several short-term effects that can affect a human body by particulate matter and toxins. We can be affected in our eyes, our ears, our nose, our throat, as well as these particulates can cause headaches, rashes, and other sensitivities. There are also many possible long-term impacts. Long-term effects can start in utero, everything from premature births and birth defects and reduced infertility to autism and ADHD in children, respiratory and hormonal diseases, and disruptions such as asthma, mesothelioma, obesity, and endocrine disruption. And of course, all types of cancers. So going back and thinking about the history of construction materials, prior to World War II, most manufacturing was with organic materials, wood, stone, minerals, cellulose. And with the introduction of the Second World War, we see the beginning of the chemical revolution. There was the introduction of petroleum-based polymers, synthetic chemicals, and volatile solvents. And then with the onset of the Vietnam War and the tech boom, we see the introduction of biocides, pesticides, flame retardants, and nanoparticles. And with all of those introductions to our environment, we see the human body begin to take on the burden, and the results are pretty scary. So anyone today listening to this presentation, if we were to take a test of all the different chemicals that are found in our bodies, there are approximately 167 chemicals that can be found in any one human body today on Earth. 76 of those chemicals are linked to cancer. 86 chemicals are known endocrine disruptors, and 79 can cause birth defects and developmental delays. As you can see, the results are definitely pretty scary. Genetics has been found to account for only 10% of all of these diseases, and the remaining causes appear to be from environmental causes. And the most at-risk populations are children, both in utero and after birth, pregnant women that transfers that burden to the fetus, and the elderly. So with that, I just would like to introduce a passive house case study that I was very lucky to be able to have a chance to work on as an interior designer. The Candela Lofts are New Jersey's first multifamily passive house. It was built in Hoboken in 2018. It's a 9-unit, 7-story building that happened to have been awarded the USGBC of New Jersey's lead project of the year. It was designed and built by Bijou Properties and Nastasi Architects. I worked on the 7th-story full-level penthouse of this particular building with my clients in 2019 through 2021. One of the requirements was to specify materials that were very healthy, that were low or had no VOCs, no flame retardants, and locally built and sourced furniture and wood. They also wanted the exterior to have healthy furnishings and natural and local plants and trees. The client was a cancer survivor, and in 2020 was diagnosed again with cancer. Most of the materials I chose needed to be sustainable, healthy, and locally sourced. From lime-washed walls and organic, locally made wallpaper to water-based floor stains and locally sourced wood from most of the furniture, case goods, and handmade built-ins, to the wool and organic cotton fabrics throughout the space, I made sure that the interior of this beautiful envelope really reflected a healthy material environment. The project turned out to be an amazing space where the client feels comfortable and feels their interior helps to support their health needs and requirements. I'm happy to say that after the diagnosis in 2020, my client is now back in remission and living a wonderful life within this beautiful, healthy envelope that also has healthy materials on the inside.
So what are healthy materials? Let's take a look at that. So when it comes to food, we have nutrition labels that we can look at. You know, if you want to eat flaming hot, crunchy Cheetos, you can look at that package and you can see that there is red dye 40 in it, and you can make the choice as to whether or not you want to go there. But we don't have that opportunity with building materials and finishes and FF&E. The industry is moving towards that, but we're not completely there yet. And so the task of finding healthy materials is the first real thing that people need to do, is to figure out what are not healthy materials. And it's about educating yourself. So before you even begin to design, you need to educate and figure out the not. So you're approaching this from that standpoint. And so what we use to determine that are all of these lists. So we have the Cradle to Cradle banned list, which they use to benchmark products that become Cradle to Cradle certified to figure out their the health impact rating. And we also have the red list from the International Living Future Institute for the Living Building Challenge. And though this list looks small, these are basically classes of chemicals. So this is an older don't screen grab this, anybody, because this is older, this image, because it looks nice. The lists now are long. And this list here that you're looking at actually represents something like 5,800 chemicals, because these are classes. And then there's a wait list of another something like 6,200 chemicals. So if those chemicals stay on that list for 12 months, then they move on to the red list. So this represents an enormous number of chemicals. We also have chemicals of concern, and you can look those up at the Green Science Policy Institute. It's 6classes.org. And those chemicals of concern are PFAS, so that's highly fluorinated chemicals. Those are usually used for waterproofing and stain resistance. Antimicrobials, flame retardants, which people have, in the past have been using them in furniture. Bisphenols and phthalates, those tend to be plasticizers, but those are all of these are very prevalent in building materials, solvents, and then certain metals. We also have Perkins and Will's precautionary list. And this is a very interesting one for all of us to use, because they also go into the building products. They give an overview of something. So here is an example looking at BPA, bisphenol A, and they present an overview of what the effects are. And it's like this one has its green screen score, et cetera, the health hazards. But then if you scroll down on the page, it also shows you where it's commonly found in terms of which building products you might find this in. And that can be very helpful when educating yourself, because what we have found, as Michelle and I have worked on our education in this area, is it's repetition of going over these things and understanding and becoming familiar with where you find these things. The other thing that Perkins and Will provides on their site, which is transparency.perkinsandwill.com, is there's a learn more section, and you can go to project applications. So if you learn visually, you can click through to one of these, like click through the residence, and what it shows is where toxics are most likely to be found inside of a built environment. And so those can be useful. So let's take a look at how this plays out. So we're looking to see what isn't healthy. And let's take a look at a piece of commercial carpet, for example. This has, 5 layers here that we're looking at. And so there are definitely hazardous components to this. You could have fluorinated chemicals and antimicrobials in the pile. There could be solvents as an adhesive in the performance pre-coat, flame retardants in the backings, because this is a commercial carpet, so they add flame retardants. And then the woven stabilizers on the back of commercial carpeting, have BPA or phthalates, because that's a plasticizer, so that it makes it flexible. We're looking at several places where you can get information and begin to inform yourself of what to watch out for. So what are healthy materials and how do you find them? So you know what you're looking out for. The ways that we do this is that we need to screen and evaluate. And what we have are certifications and ratings. So these are the tools to determine basically the level of health in among these rating systems. And you have Cradle to Cradle, you have Declare, you have Green Screen, you've got United Laboratories doing Green Guard, BIFMA level. In terms of textiles, you've got the GOTS certification, which is the Global Organic Textile Standard. You have Ecotex, the Standard 100. There are several. And you also have HPDs, which are not a certification. They are not a rating, but HPDs can help you to look at what it's not an ingredient list, but it can help you to get information about the product so that you can dig a little deeper. So let's take a look at the the 9 steps. And I just want to say, Michael, we were trying to one up here, and you have the 10 steps to building a passive house. So we wanted to be a little bit more efficient, and we've got the 9 steps to designing with healthy materials. So
the first step is to involve a qualified interior designer or specifier with healthy materials training. So if you noticed all of the alphabet soup after Maria and my name at the beginning of this presentation, these are the certifications that you want to look for when hiring an interior designer to help you deliver non-toxic and healthy products and finishes. Someone who knows how to vet products for toxic and non-toxic materials. So we'll go into what all of that means.
the second step is to get the client on board. And this is a step that and a process that needs to be finessed, because what you're doing most of the time is you are addressing an unknown need. Just like, Michael has talked about that people don't know that they can have a passive house. The same thing goes for materials. People don't know that they can actually have healthier materials and up-level their interiors and their space through the materials that are coming in. And so we, often use the approach of, well, did you know, to kind of like get into these conversations with clients, because you need to educate them with compassion. Because as you talk about these things, there can be a lot of fear around hearing about like the body burden and all these things. And whereas, Michael talks about talking to clients about the amenities, what we perceive with healthy materials is that, is it an amenity to have this beautiful, healthy space, or is it actually a necessity? And truly looking at the impact, the health impacts that all of these toxics can have, it's more of a necessity. People respond very well when you talk about the impact on children, because grandparents and parents do not want that. And one thing in talking to the client is you don't want to demonize the conventional methods of building. It's it makes people turn off. And so I like to say that you need to seduce, don't preach. And so you really need to make this seem like it's something that's desirable. And so that conversation, which has been made easier by the pandemic, because people understand now the idea of something invisible that you can't see that is affecting your health. And so how do you educate the client? You kind of do the conversation in reverse, and you start in this yes column, and you talk about healthy, non-toxic living, about bringing certain things into the space which you can lower your environmental health risks. And you kind of have to, depending upon the client, let them come to you and ask more questions. If you start going in with like VOCs, off-gassing, and talking about endocrine disruptors and toxics and unwanted particulate matter, heart and lung disease and diabetes and immunocompromise, which are all things that come out of toxics, it can make people shut down. We have also found that if people have had cancer, talking about carcinogens, I've asterisked those, can be easy. And people who have allergies will tell you immediately what they are allergic to. So allergens is also an easy part of the conversation, but this is definitely a case-by-case basis. And you have to feel your client out and see where they are at.
Number 3, involve the contractor as soon as possible and make sure they're on board with healthy priorities. I've noted that design charrettes at the very beginning of this process helps to bring together all of the stakeholders in the project. That can include the owner, a building manager, the architect, the contractors, the developers, the engineers, the end users, the maintenance workers, and the person who's actually going to be inhabiting the space. So it's vital to be able to bring everyone together and get everyone on board, so that everyone has a chance to be able to come together, listen to everyone's input, and then be able to get a unified front as you approach this passive house envelope and a healthy interior. It's just like there's a learning curve with passive house, there's also a learning curve for healthy materials. Hopefully everyone will be open to learning and to be educating, or to be educated about the process of healthy materials on the interior, just as they were open to being educated about wanting, about why they want to live in a passive house. Getting the contractor on, the person who's actually doing the building as a collaborator, is definitely a must and needs to be done earlier. Also, when you're talking about allowances for interior materials, you need to think about that some of those allowances might be a little bit higher or a little bit different as you're specifying products that would go onto the inside. At the very end of this program, we're going to be sharing additional resources, but make sure that you try to create a consensus, unify the team. Everyone should want to participate in achieving the goals of this particular project. Also, during the charrette, you can start to establish a timeline that will help facilitate the procurement of healthier materials.
And in addition to some of the resources that we've already mentioned, here is another place where people can start, contractors or even in clients too, to familiarize yourself. Home Free is a great reference. Michelle and I refer to it for reminders because sometimes you can't keep all the chemistry and things in mind. But this is a very accessible place for people to start because they break things down according to the different product types you're looking for. And so if you for example, if you click into composite woods for millwork and cabinetry, it will take you through the hazard spectrum very, very briefly. And you scroll down and they have this rating system that just is illustrative, green to red, that basically explains what you need to be looking out for and what types of materials are best and why. And so that is a good resource, as well as Michelle's and my favorite, and I'll just give a shout out to them again, is the Healthy Materials Lab at Parsons. And if you haven't begun your path of healthy materials and you want to educate yourself, this is the place to go. It's foundational. They have an online course that is completely self-paced. It's the equivalent of a semester's worth of material. It is relatively inexpensive. I think that it's around $100. And it is invaluable information. We cannot recommend it more. They also have tools, they've got guides, they have a materials library that you can look at their collections. And it also gives you a lot of food for thought. Michelle?
And then just to add on to Maria's educational talk right there, I wanted to say that once you start to educate your client and all of the stakeholders that are involved, make sure that you also, again, try not to demonize conventional practices. A really good little nudge to embrace the change in practicing healthfulness together is always good. So as long as you let your contractor know and some of the other people involved that this is not going to be business as usual, things are going to be done a little bit differently on the interior. And then from there, you can clearly start to identify priorities, strategies, and goals. And number 4, you might want to be able to introduce material health strategies to your project team and establish what's most important. To have a clear plan from the onset of the project helps the team navigate potential obstacles and helps you present the case for material health to all the stakeholders. So there could be several priorities that you choose. Some of them might be knowing that you're going to stress material transparency, that you're going to avoid toxics such as formaldehyde and phthalates, whether you might be designing for a young family or an elderly couple, or designing for occupants that have allergies or diseases. Or you might just say you're going to eliminate PFAS throughout all of the materials that you're adding into the space. These types of priorities can also be set during the charrette, where you help to define the scope. What will you prioritize? And holding this charrette will help you discuss all your priorities and then communicate those priorities to all the stakeholders. So after setting priorities, you want to consider goals and strategies, and some of them might be eliminating adhesives, eliminating glues, removing all asthmagens, and then simply maybe up-leveling all horizontal surfaces. So you want to be realistic about the goals. It might be really unrealistic to be able to say that you're going to do all of these strategies on your first time as you're making a home have healthy interiors, but be true to those priorities. And make a case for designing for the environment and for the people and the planet. Encourage tackling at least one goal per project and make those realistic promises given your sphere of influence. So perhaps you just want to say, we're going to make sure that every item we specify has a declare label, or you're going to make sure that you're going to eliminate all adhesives and glues throughout the space. Don't make the scope too large, because then it might inhibit people for wanting to follow through. So perhaps in the scope, you might want to say which materials will be in high volume, or those that are going to be touched most often. Those are going to present the highest level of exposure to the occupants. Also think about it in the schematic design phase. There's definitely opportunity to introduce health in the basis of design.
Great. And so step number 5, once you've decided your goals, your priorities, and what you're going after, you need to select the materials and specify. And the best way to do that is to use the databases and use certifications as a tool. You're on the hunt to make sure that the toxics are missing. You know, you're approaching it kind of from the other way around. You know, rather than looking for healthy, you need to make sure that it's clean. And so you can use the Healthy Materials Lab. Cradle to Cradle has a database, and Declare also has a database of products. You want to look and see which resources can be a shortcut for you, because these have a lot of product evaluations and there are case studies. One of the databases which is really interesting and coming up in the industry is Ecomedes and Mindful Materials. Some of you might be familiar with those, but Ecomedes and Mindful Materials now have a collaboration, and they are great places to go to begin your search and get familiar with products. And what you can do is you can find what certifications each of these products have on these databases. And we'll give an example in a second. So use the databases. So when you're specifying, you want to ask some questions, right? As you're talking, you might not find something in a database, but you're talking to a manufacturer and you want to ask, what is it made of? How is it made? Where is it made? And does it require finishes? Very often the finishes are where the toxics come in. How will it be installed? Does it need adhesives? Who will be exposed in the process of its making and its installation and during the occupancy of the space, and where does it go at the end of its useful life? These are the questions to be asking. And if there is a certification for a product, educate yourself about what all of these certifications mean. There are questions to ask around that. And what does the label mean? In other words, what are they testing for? Is it third-party certified? And what standard does that certification meet? And what's the specific claim that that certification makes in regard to human health or environmental health? And so let's look at an example. So you have Green Guard Gold, right? This is for emissions testing, and it relates to IAQ. It's by United Underwriters Laboratory, and this tests for VOCs and other pollutants. The gold standard includes health-based criteria for additional chemicals, and it complies with CDPH. So that's the California Department of Public Health, which tends to have a great standard for the country in terms of health, and CDPH is a great benchmark. And it also is compliant with BIFMA standards. And so let's look at those questions again in relation to if you have a Green Guard Gold label. What does the label mean? What's it testing for? VOCs. Third-party certified? Yes. Underwriters Laboratory. The standard that it meets, it's both California Department of Public Health and BIFMA. And its specific claim is that it has low VOC emissions. But the thing to keep in mind, just using this as an example, and keeping in mind that the Green Guard Gold is a label that is completely trustworthy, it's only testing for emissions. It says nothing about the ingredients in a product. There could be toxics used in the manufacturing of this product, but the key here, they're not off-gassing. So depending upon the priorities that you've set for your project, priorities and goals, this product that has a Green Guard Gold certification may or may not fulfill your project goals. So this is where you have to get really discerning. So that's an example.
I also just want to add in, sorry,
Please.
a second, is that most manufacturers are going to be familiar with these questions. And if they are and they can answer these questions, ask them to post their certifications and their specifications on their website so that it can be easily seen by others who are willing to use their products. And bookmark all of these sites so you can easily reference them and save yourself some time.
Yeah, it is time consuming. And so let's take a look at the top 4 of these databases. Michelle?
Getting there. So the Healthy Materials Lab has a very large database with a number of resources, tools, guides, and explanations. It can be a little bit clunky at first, so give yourself some time to look at it, move around, answer some questions that you might be thinking about when you see a particular product, or on this particular page, say you're interested in composite wood products or insulation. Give yourself some time to click through and see what kind of information you can find out about these building product collections, and familiarize yourself so that you can quickly find what you're looking for. Also, they have a link section called Material Collections. And this is a section that highlights products that avoid major hazard concerns in many of the categories, such as interior paints or floorings. So this is another area that you can take your time to see what type of building products, what type of databases, certified products, what type of libraries they put together. There's so much research on this particular website, and I feel like I access it almost daily, and almost daily I find something new that I never saw before. So give yourself some time. It's a really great website to be able to check out and to find many of the answers to the questions you're looking for. Also, Ecomedes is also a really great resource for building materials and many other interior products. You can join the website for free and access many products based on many different criteria. For example, you can search products that are only Cradle to Cradle certified. You'll click a box and it will only populate with items that will give you a Cradle to Cradle certification.
And
Go ahead.
so this, I had found this product. So like we had said earlier, everything we're talking about also applies not just to interior finishes and furnishings, but to all building materials. So you could look at everything that you are already using and check where it rates for health. So I went onto the Source 2050 site and I looked at the brands and I saw that Prosecco was one of the brands. So I went back to Ecomedes, put in Prosecco, or Prosecco, I don't know how to pronounce that, and came up with this. This is something that you are using. It's on the Source 2050 site. And so in Ecomedes, you can find all of the information that that there is. So if information about sustainability certifications exists for a product, you will find it on Ecomedes if they have that product listed. And so this one shows down really small in the lower right-hand corner, this is Living Building Challenge Red List approved. So this has a declare label. So this is the kind of information that you can find. And what you can do on Ecomedes is you can set up a project and you can put all of the different materials that you're using into that project. And then you can have it crunch the numbers against a rating system. They don't have Passive House, but they do have LEED. They also have Living Building Challenge. They have WELL. So if you ran it against the Living Building Challenge, for example, you would probably get information about the health impacts. And you can also be doing this through Mindful Materials, because Mindful Materials they're in beta right now, having brought Ecomedes in to basically run their back end. So that's going to be, it'll be developing, but you'll also be able to do this through Mindful Materials.
So getting back to my Cradle to Cradle certified products, for example, if you're looking at all materials that might have a Cradle to Cradle certification, you can go on their website and search for whatever material you might like to have in your interior. And for instance, this Carnegie Zorel fabric, it's fabric wall covering, can also be used for upholstery. On this Cradle to Cradle website, you can see that this particular product is rated gold. You can download the certifications if you're working on a LEED project or a WELL project. And then all along the right-hand side, you can see that it has material health, a platinum standard, material reutilization, gold standard, social fairness in gold, overall level gives you the gold. And then it will also give you information about what the fabric or the material can be used for and where it can be filed. So to receive certification, products here in Cradle to Cradle are assessed for environmental and social performance across 5 critical sustainable categories: material health, material reuse, renewable energy, carbon management, water stewardship, and social fairness. And then the product, again, is assigned an achievement level, basic all the way through platinum for each category. So product designers, manufacturers, and brands around the world rely on Cradle to Cradle certified product standards as a transformative pathway for designing and making products with a positive impact on people and planet. So from anything from fragrances to flooring to t-shirts and jeans to water bottles and window treatments, thousands of products are Cradle to Cradle certified. And this website will give you every product that is certified in all categories that you can see here along the left side. Also, one of your priorities might be to specify only products that have a declare label. So you can go to the Living Building Challenge declare website, which is in our, I believe Kim is adding that to this chat box. If you're looking to specify products with declare labels, you can go to this particular website and you can search for a particular material. You can also search by CSI division for materials on that website. And you can find anything from wall finishes, flooring finishes, acoustical tiles to furniture, flooring, and furnishings. If you're looking specifically for furnishings, you can click on this area called furnishings, and anything that you might like to have specifically a little bit more on the commercial side than residential in this particular area of declare. But it will give you all of the furnishings that you might want to specify that have a cradle to cradle or declare certification. You can also check manufacturers' offerings. So if you go to a manufacturer's website and you're interested in finding out more information about a particular product, you might have to do a little bit more digging on a manufacturer's website. But this particular website that is showing some fabrics, if you look on the right-hand side of this particular slide, you can see that this particular fabric is cradle to cradle certified, Green Guard certified, LBC Red List compliant, bio-based content, recycled content, made in the US, PFC free, and non-vinyl. So many of the manufacturers these days are starting to hop on board and comply with actually putting these types of offerings right on their website so that you don't need to make a phone call, you don't need to send an email, and you might not have to check any of these other databases that we're talking about. This next slide just happens to show the website from Maharam Fabrics. They do a great job of categorizing their fabrics and wall coverings, and they'll be able to let you know, depending on what particular color or fabric or style that you're looking at, whether it might be Red List compliant, that it might be VOC free, it might have non-vinyls in it. Maharam is really a good website to be able to check for these types of products. And then getting to number 7 of our 9. Oh, sorry, forgot 6. Maria.
Right. Number 6 is that you need to create proprietary specifications. It's really the only way to make sure that you are going to end up with healthy materials in your project, because making a proprietary spec de-risks your materials. You have to specify. This is the moment where you can actually embed material health into your design. You need to set really clear expectations around this in order to ensure the success of including healthy materials in a project, and you leave nothing to interpretation. We just specify, and go proprietary, because then you can avoid regrettable substitutions. And you do need to, I don't want to jump the gun because I think Michelle's going to cover it in the next one, but create a proprietary spec.
And then once you create that spec, you want to protect your spec. So there needs to be a gatekeeper that upholds goals and requirements and protects the project from anyone installing or ordering a particular material that should not belong on the interior of this beautiful home. So construction administration is going to require an authority figure to remind everyone of the project's health standards. You want to make sure that your products match your specifications on site. And then you need to define substitution criteria to avoid regrettable substitutions for when your first choice product isn't available. Just like you don't want someone to poke holes in the smart membrane of this beautiful passive house envelope, you don't want somebody to poke holes in your specification. You can't always have subs reverting to how they always do it as their old go-to. Make sure that you protect your spec.
And then step number 8 is to set up a healthy maintenance plan. If you have all of these beautiful, healthy, non-toxic materials in the space, you don't want people bringing in cleansers and cleaners that are toxic. So include cleaning protocols. The important thing too is to get the client involved with this. If it's a home, you know, set up the cleaning protocols and the plan with them. Suggest things that can be used that are non-toxic for the surfaces that they have put in. Manufacturers sometimes have those recommendations. Those recommendations from manufacturers are not always, in fact, most frequently, not checked for toxics. Or if this is a multifamily building or an affordable housing project, include the operations and maintenance as a stakeholder, even from the onset of the project, and include them in the charrette. You know, creating that healthy maintenance plan is very important for maintaining and protecting the health of the interior.
And the last, number 9, encourage your client to work with a qualified interior designer for healthy furnishings. An interior designer who is qualified will be able to help you choose materials and furnishings that are both healthy and non-toxic. For example, this chair, thanks to Cisco Furniture's website for this, shows their chair or a chair broken down into healthy components. First, you see the frame, FSC certified woods, no toxic adhesives or glues or formaldehydes are added. Then you've got the foam, which is the organic latex for comfort without toxicity or VOCs. And then a fabric on top of that, wool. It's an upholstery fabric, humanely raised sheet for strong, durable, soft fabric that's inherently. And then any padding that's used is made with organic cotton, clean, classic, naturally harvested, and not dyed or bleached. And then finally, just a final picture showing 2 of the Cisco chairs I used in a project in the past, where I was asked to create a healthy environment for vacationing for 3 generations of a family. And the whole idea was that while the oldest person in the family was aging in place, and the youngest was a newborn child who then would be crawling around on carpeting and floors and putting lots of things in their mouth, they wanted this place to be healthy, sustainable, and non-toxic. It's relatively easy to do once you get into the habit of specifying certain products. We're here to help you. There are many interior designers that are out there that are willing to help you work on this. And we hope that you'll continue to think about the beautiful furnishings that will go into your beautiful envelope.
And so if you pursue this, you can go from questioning what is inside the envelope to knowing what's inside the envelope. And to help you along that path, we're going to have share some resources. These are, and this is these resources that you see on the screen right now are pretty much for educating yourself. We've touched on many of these. These are for education. And I'm just going to give you a second if people want to screen grab. And I know that Kim is sharing, though I cannot see the chat at the moment. And then the next slide I'm about to show are for sourcing materials. And these are places where you can go and actually find materials. So I'll give you a second if people are screen grabbing that. We could also share that later. And then the other thing is just to be a little geeky about this. the Healthy Materials Lab has just published a book called Material Health Design Frontiers, and it's a fascinating read. It covers many different aspects of thinking about material health. It has, I can't remember how many authors, but it's got submissions from many authors actually across the globe. And it's a really, it's a great book to get you thinking about these things. And so with that, thank you. And we'll go to a Q&A if there's a little time left. I think we went a little long.
Oh, that was great. Thank you so much, Phoebe, Michelle, and Maria. It's an incredibly important topic, one that I was pretty excited about having on for weeks now. Also, thanks to the students at New York School of Interior Design for being on. Feel free to ask some questions in the chat as well. We have lots of great questions, but first, let's do a quick thank you to our sponsors.
Hi, I'd like to give a big thank you to the fine organizations that make our work at Passive House Accelerator possible. First, a big shout out to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Thank you too to our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Bax Ingui Architects, Glavel, Minutair All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification Units, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, Rockwool North America, Stocorp, and Zola Windows. And thank you to our champion sponsors, Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, Proseco, and Source 2050. And thank you to our patron sponsors, Aero Aggregates, Brennan, Brooklyn Solar Works, Euroline Windows, Coltraco Ultrasonics Micro Air Leak Detector, Inotech Windows and Doors, Lamelux, Owens Corning, RDH Building Science, Sanderson Sustainable Design, and US Engineered Wood T-Stud. Thank you, sponsors.
All right, that was great. Thanks, Zach, of course. I think we'll go to one question and then maybe do a little bit of scheduling after that. Shannon Pendleton, you've got the first question.
Oh, wow. Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Could have shared that earlier. Sorry. Surprise.
Oh, no worries. I'm right here right now because this presentation was amazing. I think you may have set the record for the number of screenshots. So you answered my first question, which was about protecting substitutions. But I'm wondering, how do you engage the contractor once construction starts, if they start to want to substitute materials? And how do you create allowances or deal with issues of cost in order to defend the spec?
One of the first things I'm going to say is that if you're going to be building a passive house, you've obviously made a great decision to build this way, and you've made the investment that we know passive house building is a little bit more expensive than a standard construction project for a house. So if you've made that investment already, then it only seems fair that you'd make the additional investment to make the interior of your home as wonderful as you've decided to make the envelope of the home. So perhaps maybe some of the interiors might be a little bit more expensive. Many times we're finding that they're not. Many times we find that they're equally priced. You just have a choice of whether you're going to purchase a healthier product over a product that might have some type of VOCs or off-gassing or flame retardant in it. So I think if you're making the investment to build passive house, then continue with that investment and design for something healthy on the interior.
And I just want to add that I think the timing of when you bring the contractor in is important. And there are usually in a project, there are two ways that when you bring the contractor in, but bringing them in as early as possible so that they're aware. Like if you have a client who they have the contractor they want to work with, then they're there from the start. and they need to be on board from the very beginning so that when they make their budgets, when they do their estimates and have their allowances, they know what it is. And if it's the point where you've done all of the construction docs and you're putting it out to bid, and they know, and you have a proprietary spec, they know what it is, so their estimates can accurately reflect, so that you want to kind of avoid the surprises. And then the substitutions, there needs to be a certain amount of trust. One, you can put it into your spec so that you have the criteria that it needs to meet. But there needs to be a conversation, and that can be an ongoing conversation.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that conversation. I'm right there with you. Bring the contractors in early, and it brings everybody together. Next question in the queue is Heo. Hopefully I'm saying that right.
No, it's Hio, but
So close.
that's okay.
Not really close. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of related. I was asking about, the upcharge of what is healthy materials, and brings with it. If you want to, I guess, I understand there's a range of maybe, having a few, aspects to, the full meal deal. And I guess it's, that's kind of a big question for a lot of people, like developers, homeowners, everybody. So if, I think if people hear what the benefits are, they would probably want it. But then there's always the question, how much it's going to cost. So I guess that's a question, what do we tell people? Because I think there's, on one hand, there's going to be a lot of more research and design work involved, especially in the beginning. And then the other part is where, I know if you go to the organic grocery store, everything is probably like 2 or 3 times more money now than just regular groceries. So yeah, kind of wondering what we can tell our clients.
Well, again, I would say that if you're somewhat comparing apples to apples, I think you're going to get a similar price across the board. But if you think that you're going to put materials in the inside of a passive house home, and you're going to specify products that are coming from, say, a place like Wayfair or IKEA, okay, you already know that you're going to be spending a lot less money, but you're not going to get a good quality product. But if you're going to, say, purchase something from Pottery Barn, which does have a lot of healthy aspects to it and some certifications, I think that's will give you a pretty average price for a really nicely made piece of furniture. So I guess it depends that if someone's making the case for building a passive house home and wanting to live in a passive house home, then I think you need to do that, as Maria said, seduce them into the fact that they want to be able to have a healthy interior and healthy materials and healthy furniture on the inside for not that much more money. So these are the kinds of things that I talk about with my clients on why they should choose one specific piece of furniture over another. And when I give them the cost analysis versus what item number A from Wayfair is made from versus item number B from Pottery Barn, they can see the difference. And really, it's not that much more of an upcharge for something that's going to be healthy for them, their children, and perhaps their parents.
Yeah, I just want to tack on that it is about investing in health, and the cost for going with a mineral paint over an acrylic paint is that added cost is worth the health benefit to for example. And the other thing is, if you're working on multifamily projects or affordable housing projects, the Healthy Materials Lab is a great resource because it is part of they are funded to bring healthy materials to affordable housing projects. So they're a great resource to go through and to learn from them, to find materials that are at a price point that work for those projects. So if you're, that's a good resource to tap into as well.
I think it's so similar to some of the conversations we have even with contractor selection. And it's just making sure that before we talk about price, that not everything is really created equal, that we're talking about a healthy material versus a material that's not so healthy. So we talk about that with contractors all the time, and I think we could do it the same way. Peter, if you're still around, you've got the next question.
Yeah, just wondering that is some of the toxic effect of the lousier products that are used mitigated by continuous ventilation that's in a passive house? Does it just help a little bit, or does it take care of some things? And how soon can most of these non-toxic materials be more widely used by manufacturers and tract builders and general contractors and the subtrades?
Well, I think that we always like to say that there's impact on with a product, not just in the space. So once something off gases and the gas is gone, in terms of your indoor air quality, it's not affecting that. But the part of the issue is that everything is always breaking down slightly. Even finishes, they are at a microscopic level. They are bringing particulate matter into the air that we ingest. And I don't think, I think if we were talking about, Kramer talked about the vents over stoves that are too large for a house, and they like pull the ash out of the fireplaces. If you have a fireplace in a passive house, if you've got a vent like that, sure, it could pull that stuff out of the air, but that's not the case. And so with off-gassing, they leave, but all the particulate matter is very important to consider. Michelle, do you have anything that you want to add?
Well, I think also, like I stated at the very beginning, constantly, anytime you walk in and out of a house and you open and close a door, and your feet and your coat and your handbag and a box from UPS or a grocery bag, we are constantly bringing in particulate matter from outside. There's no telling what we have on us or what we're bringing into our home. And so the fact that we can't control how much we're bringing in. So when we can control it, we can make good decisions on what kind of paints we want to use, what kind of finishes we want to use, what kind of flooring we put in, carpets we want to lay down, upholstered furniture that we want to add to the space. If we can make those decisions and know that we made those good decisions, that's an area I think that we can make an impact but we none of us can understand or even know what we're bringing into our house on a daily basis. And if we are bringing it into the passive house, hopefully knowing that a lot of those little particulate matters, hopefully, as the air gets changed constantly 24/7, that it's helping to bring any of that back outside.
Yeah. And Peter, there were two other parts to your question, and let me see if I've got them right. But these materials are available and they can be used. And the more that we keep reaching out to manufacturers and asking for transparency and asking for the removal of toxics, the more that they respond. And certification systems have been driving the market. It's LEED and WELL and Living Building Challenge that have driven the market for manufacturers to change, because they want their products included in these projects that get this big gold star. And so we just need to keep plugging away. And, we have seen a lot of change in the industry in the past like few years. So keep up the fight.
So it's more actually consumer driven, that they need to ask for it and know to ask for it and be educated. They need to require it from manufacturers.
Yeah, the consumer education is a place, it's a gap in the industry in terms of because they don't know that they can be asking for it. Architects and designers are coming on board, but there's still work in the industry to be done around all of that.
It's as you say, it's just, that's the way we've always done it. Isn't good enough. No.
Yeah, no, that's no good. Change.
All right, guys. So we actually have like 3 or 4 more questions. We usually end at 1:15. Maybe we'll end at like 1:20 and kind of do them as a little bit of a speed round. We'll see. So Sarah, if you're still here, it'd be great if you ask the next question.
Let's see. I think I asked a few questions. I think,
You did.
is there a product, is there a product that you wish had better options at the moment? I think that was maybe the best one.
Yeah.
I would like to say, just for me, I wish that there were better options or more options in upholstered furniture. I would like to be able to know that there are products out there that people can purchase on their own, even if they're not going through an interior designer, so that they can make, the consumers can make the decision for themselves. I find myself going to local manufacturers here in New York City, Brooklyn, New Jersey, Hoboken, to have things handmade so that I can actually specify exactly what I want and what healthy materials I want included in those particular pieces of furniture. So I wish there were more, that there was a wider array of products available for people to purchase on their own without having to go through an interior designer if they don't want to do that. So more of that.
Yeah. And I'll jump on and say foam. Foam is the one product, and this ties in with what Michelle was talking about upholstered furniture. It's prevalent, it's in all upholstered furniture, sofas, chairs, it's everywhere. And foam is a big culprit of adding particulate matter. And we don't have a lot of healthy alternatives for foam. And to have all of the manufacturers, if we were to come up with alternatives, they would have to remachine a lot of their plants. So that's foam. Foam would be the one product that I wish we had, like a mycelium substitute that could be produced at scale. But we're not there yet.
The next question I think was asked for me to read it, so I will, from Becky, which is similar to this, which is for those working in the affordable workforce multifamily world, which category of products would you recommend prioritizing for health spec that have the biggest bang for the buck, lowest upfront costs for the most long-term benefit? It's always hard to like limit at that, but go for it in a speed round.
I would say flooring. Michelle, I'm not sure what you would say, but I would say flooring. There are great options for an affordable pricing, such as, I don't like to name brands, but I will at this moment. But, Forbo, Marmoleum is a great choice for affordable housing, and it's at a price point that can be comparable to other, and flooring lasts forever. That product will stay in a space for decades and decades. So yeah, that would be my choice.
I would say flooring and wall coverings. So, water-based paints, mineral paints or mineral finishes such as lime washing. I know a lot of those aren't exactly especially lime washing after a number of years would need to happen again, but by covering affordable housing walls with toxic paint, no one's ever going to escape the toxic materials and VOCs that are coming off of that paint. So I think that could make a really big impact in affordable housing. And just to say, if you don't know or haven't heard of it yet, the Healthy Materials Lab has a wonderful affordable housing self-paced program. I took it last summer. I thought it was great. So very nicely priced and really a lot of bang for your buck if you're really more interested in learning more about specifying materials for affordable housing.
All right, great. I think I'm going to have to go to our last question, and Reed, that will be from you if you're still here.
I just want to say I actually read Reed's question, and
go for it.
I
Nice.
It says, do you or should you consider products that once installed and after a specific time, say a few weeks, the product has finished off-gassing and is safe, be it paint, finishes in general, or adhesives and such? I would say, number one, no. Off-gassing is not a couple of weeks. Off-gassing is 5 to 7, sometimes 10 years or more, depending on what product you're putting within an interior. So I would not at all even consider using a product that has any type of off-gassing. Even with, the blower door tests and things like that that are happening prior to being certified as a passive house, it is never going to get rid of any of those VOCs or SVOCs within the space. And no matter what, it will continue to off-gas for years. So I definitely would not recommend using any subpar products on the interior of a passive house.
Great answer. Okay, I lied about that being the last question. I'm going to ask one last question. And I promise this is the last one. So, I mean, you had mentioned 6 classes and a few other things, but, I'm an architect or I'm an interior designer coming into this. I'm hooked, which I'm sure everybody was. Is there one place people should start? If I really wanted to dive in, you have to go first to something. Any recommendations on that? And that'll be my last question.
I'll jump in.
I will have the same answer, so go ahead.
Well, maybe, I'm not sure, Michelle, we might have different answers. I think a good place to start if you're just coming in and you really don't know anything is to actually go to 6 classes and watch the videos, because they're very impactful, and you need to understand what we're dealing with in terms of the chemistry. I think that for people who know a little bit about it, the Healthy Materials Lab and their program to really educate yourself, to dive in, that is the foundational course. It is just, we recommend it to every single designer and architect that we run into. But I would say a good place to start is 6 classes. On the client side, having them start at home free would be a more accessible way for them to start. Michelle, I don't know if you agree or if you have a different answer.
I would have said exactly Healthy Materials Lab and 6 classes. And then for the client who's probably absolutely a complete newbie, again, Home Free is just a website to get started checking things out. I think Healthy Materials Lab course for a client or a homeowner is probably way too much over someone's head. But yes, same answer.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Kim and Zach, of course. This has been great. And yeah, we look forward to this being the first of many sessions like this. So thanks, everyone.